It's been an amazing journey, this life of mine. This planet has filled me with the wonder of all living things, great and small. We cannot ignore this earth that surrounds us, that feeds us, shelters us, replenishes our bodies and our souls, and stretches our imaginations, where animals, plants, air, water, all care for us. We're all interconnected, people, animals, our environment. When nature suffers, we suffer. And when nature flourishes, we all flourish. I do believe in the possibility of a world where we can live in harmony with nature, but only if every one of us does our part to make that world a reality, so that when you look back over your journey, your life, you can truly say, I did make a difference.
Welcome, everyone, to the Canadian Celebration of Life for Dr. Jane Goodall. As we gather together to remember a person who dedicated her whole life to protecting the one precious planet we all call home, we also want to take a moment to center the voices of Indigenous peoples who have been stewarding these lands and waters since time immemorial.
It's been a...
We are great. Jane's speaking over my shoulder. I can feel it. Thank you, Jane. We are grateful for the opportunity to host this event on the traditional and ancestral territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, the Petun, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit River First Nation. Their deeply rooted relationships with the land continue to this day. This land is also part of a dish with one spoon territory, a peace and friendship treaty between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Anishinaabe, and allied nations to share, care for, and protect this land, its waters, and all the richness of biodiversity in the Great Lakes region. We also welcome people joining us online today from across Canada. In relationship with different lands and different histories, we encourage everyone in attendance to join us, reflecting on our own responsibilities and commitments to this land and its original inhabitants. Now, just before we begin, just want to ask you to please silence your cell phones. We are taping today's gathering, and we'll be sharing the recording after the event. Today, we come together in community with each other to honor the extraordinary life of Dr. Jane Goodall, scientist, conservationist, humanitarian, and to celebrate her remarkable journey that spanned over 9 decades. The story of Jane is one that's been told many times, often by none other than Dr. Jane herself, the true master of storytelling. And while many of us here have heard some of these accounts of her life and know of the many accomplishments that Jane has achieved, in this moment, when we're experiencing a sense of profound loss, there's something grounding to retell these stories, because it's her stories that brought all of us here together today. It's her stories that connect us, and it's her stories that continue to give us hope. It all began on April 3rd, 1934. Valerie Jane Morris Goodall was born in London, England. She came from a pretty modest upbringing, but at the young age of 26, she left all that behind that was familiar and followed her heart and her passion to study wildlife in Africa. She traveled to Gombe, Tanzania, where she began her landmark research of chimpanzees, immersing herself in the forest where they lived, almost as a curious neighbor and rather than a distant observer. Her research in Gombe National Park, which began in 1960, continues to this very day and is the longest running study of wild chimpanzees in the world. Jane's breakthrough discovery that chimpanzees make and use tools sent shockwaves in the scientific world at that time, and famously redefined the relationship between humans and other animals forever. Jane's work was groundbreaking, not only because of her important discoveries, and there were many, but it was the unconventional way that she approached science. The way that she connected her findings from knowledges of facts and figures in one's head to the feelings of compassion and empathy in one's heart. Jane's innate gift to tell stories that reach both the head and the heart became a powerful force to communicate her message that transcended the academic world and reached across all sectors of society. And that's when the world got to know Jane the icon. Many of you know she traveled 300 days a year to spread her message of hope in action, inspiring people from around the world, from heads of states to business executives to youth leaders. She met with people from all walks of life, individuals like you and I, and Jane stayed true to the same message regardless of whom she met, that she deeply believed that each of us can make a difference, and each of us can choose what action to take every day to make the world a better place in our own way. Jane's holistic approach of caring for the well-being of animals, people, and the environment through the lens that everything is interconnected made her a trailblazer and a fierce advocate to do conservation differently, to truly let communities lead, and how we work alongside local populations and listen to their ways. Her tireless effort to fight for a better world, to protect the one precious planet we call home, were globally recognized. She was named the United Nations Messenger of Peace in 2002, appointed as the Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire at the Buckingham Palace in 2004, and just at the beginning of this year, she received the United States Presidential Medal of Freedom. Here in Canada, Jane received the Royal Canadian Geographic Society Gold Medal, honorary doctorates from several Canadian universities, including here at the University of Toronto, and a Lifetime Achievement Award from Artists for Peace and Justice Canada. Beyond these accolades, one of Jane's lasting legacies are the seeds that she planted when she founded the Jane Goodall Institute, which has now grown to 25 chapters worldwide, including here in Canada. She often referred to this network of institutes as family, and this global movement she started is carrying on her important mission. Jane's beloved Roots and Shoots youth program was one of her main reasons for hope. Young people leading the charge and driving change. Roots and Shoots began with just 12 youth in Tanzania, and it's now grown to over 70 countries. In Canada, more than 12,000 young people have been involved in projects that they themselves created to find sustainable solutions in their own backyards and communities from coast to coast to coast. And all of this work is part of the fruits of Jane's labor, along with all those who believed in her mission. What has grown from the seeds that she planted now is up to all of us to ensure they continue to flourish. Much has been said about Jane the icon, and looking around the room, I think a number of you here today also know something about the person behind the legend. She could be funny, yes, a little bit playful, and also a prankster sometimes when she wants. And now I just have to share a story with you about that. Earlier in the spring, Jane is scheduled to come to Canada for her usual tour that she comes for the month around her birthday. And she was set for her Western Canada tour. And just 2 weeks before a sold-out event in Vancouver, we received an email from Jane with the subject line, "Canceling tour." Yes, She then proceeded to let us know she hurt her back, she didn't know what happened, and she's not sure she can make it to Canada after all. Well, you can imagine the panic that ensued. Our team whipped into action and started thinking about who should we call and making plans and alternatives. And then just then, my phone pinged, and I looked at it, and it was a video message from Jane. My heart, like beating hard, I opened it up, and there's twinkles in her eyes. She looked at me and she said, "April Fool's, Bella." And then, yes, she did start laughing. Yes. Well, after I kind of averted a heart attack, told the team, okay, crisis averted, we can go back to our plans. And then our team just said, classic Jane, isn't it? Classic. And that's just one of many stories where Jane, just being Jane, brought us not only wisdom and inspirations, but also moments of levity and laughter in our lives. And we can use a lot of that these days. Many of you also have your own memories. You have many stories of Jane. We've heard heartfelt testimonies of individuals who told us that their lives have been changed and shaped by Jane. Now, whether it's growing up, being inspired, reading about her stories in National Geographic, or maybe sitting in an audience watching the hero speaking live on stage, or maybe it was a quiet evening having a chat with her over a sip of whiskey, or maybe a couple of sips. Jane's superpower was her incredible ability to connect authentically with people, and she made us feel seen. And in those moments of connections, she changed us for the better. The world will never see another Jane Goodall. It is an immense loss for each of us and for the planet at a time when it feels like the world needs her sage wisdom more than ever. But the spirit of Jane lives on. In the beautiful tapestry of life she talked about and she fought so hard to protect. In the resilience of nature that she marveled at and encouraged us to see it. And in every human act of courage and hope that she has inspired. Jane was a beacon of light in an often dark world. She represented the goodness in humanity, and she saw the best in each of us. Jane blazed the trail so that the rest of us can move forward in her footsteps, to find hope in taking action, and to build a world where animals, people, and the environment can truly thrive together. She saw in us what she often talked about is the indomitable human spirit. And just like Jane never gave up or lost hope, neither will we. Thank you. And it is now my honor to invite our special guests and partners to the stage from the Willow River Center. A year ago, Jane visited the center and saw for herself the remarkable work the community is doing. Willow River Center is the only Indigenous and queer-led space in the region of Waterloo. Today, we're honored to have Amy Smoke from Mohawk Nation, Turtle Clan of Six Nations of Grand River, Bangshimo and Anishinaabe, originally from Couchiching First Nation, located on Treaty 3 territory. Amy and Bangshimo are the co-founders of Land Back Camp and the Willow River Center. Also with them, we have Maddie Bernard Resmer, two-spirited mixed Algonquin artists whose maternal family is from the Algonquins of Pikwakanagan First Nations and the Kitigan-Zibi Anishinaabe First Nation. Welcome, Amy, Bangshimo, and Maddie.
Yo, nya, sego sawagwego Amy Smoke nyangets, kinyankahaga niwagun want jodan. I know what need a wagi darondam, Waganuwat. I said, hello everybody. Amy Smoke is my name, and I am Mohawk Nation Turtle Clan of the Six Nations of the Grand River. Waganuwat is also, I have the pattern of different spirits in my body. I'm a two-spirit indigiqueer person. And as a Haudenosaunee, as an Oklahoma person on our lands, we like to begin all things with the Ohando Garawendekwa, the Thanksgiving address. And it's all of the things in creation that mattered to Jane, that Jane had a relationship with. And they're loosely translated, the Ohando Garawendekwa means the words that come before all else, the preliminary matters. We want to gather our minds together as one and greet all of those things in creation and be humble for all of those things in creation that allowed us to open our eyes here today, to see each other today, to breathe the air today. And I think that really resonated with Dr. Jane Goodall. I'll say it in my language. It'll only be for about 2 minutes, but you could hear one for 2 hours. And I will throw in some English so you know what I'm talking about. Sewati hosios ne garewesa, ni gari ohando garewandakwa, and de wawa no hetste. Agwego anska and de wahwe nuni ne ngwat ni gura. Dahnu dietinu hurara ne. Ojidan ogua, the feathered ones, the birds. Atoni and duhak ne ngwat ni gura. Agwego anska and de wahwe nuni ne ngwat ni gura. Dahnu dietinu hurara ne. Yeri ni staha owanja, Mother Earth. Atoni and duhak ne ngwat ni gura. Agwego anska and de wahwe nuni ne ngwat ni gura. Dahnu dietinu hurara ne. Ongwe sua, people. Atoni and duhak ne ngwat ni gura. Agwego anska and de wahwe nuni ne ngwat ni gura. Dahnu dietinu hurara ne. Genagaronia, the water. Atoni and duhak ne ngwat ni gura. Agwego anska and de wahwe nuni ne ngwat ni gura. Dahnu dietinu hurara ne. Gandirio, the four-leggeds. Atoni and duhak ne ngwat ni gura. Agwego anska and de wahwe nuni ne ngwat ni gura. Dahnu dietinu hurara ne. The Chirwane hurara ne sangwa and disa. Creator. Atoni and duhak ne ngwat ni gura. Ona noa atoni oriji wakweni doga otana se waganirahana. Ize and guarahana yazoara sunara ne gana wana dosara. Atoni guwani gidana ona ato. Yo, and what I said at the very end there is if I didn't say something that you would like to honor or acknowledge or greet, you should do so in your own way. And now our minds are gathered together as one. Yo, now.
Miigwech, kwe ani hello, Maddie Meresiwa namin Indigenous cause Makwan Dodem, Pigwak Nigin Minwak Ganzi bin in Dunjaba Kitchener Andayan Nija Ode Ninda. Hello, my name is Maddie. I am mixed Algonquin. My mom's family comes from Kiriganzibi and Pigwaknigan First Nations. I am Bear Clan, and I am Nija Ode, which means two-hearted or two-spirited. And I am also going to be speaking a little bit about Jane's work as a storyteller. For Indigenous people, our stories are our lifeblood. They teach us humility and courage, even jokes and trickery. But most importantly, they remind us that every being carries their own story too. That all parts of creation, the birds, the water, the bugs, the trees, the animals, hold knowledge, teachings, language, and the ability to teach us more about the world than we may ever know ourselves. Today, with grief and gratitude, we honor an exceptional human being who was as remarkable of a storyteller as she was a listener. Dr. Jane Goodall dedicated her life to practicing a level of care that taught millions around the world how curiosity, compassion, and courage can exist together, and remind us all that hope is something we practice every day and not just something we can wait for. Miigwech.
Baju ani bangishimo Indigenous cause kuchiching no dinjaba makwododem. My name is Bangishimo. Dr. Jane Goodall visited Willow River Center just over a year ago, and it was such an honor to spend the afternoon with her in our space. In the picture you might have seen a few minutes ago, when she was in our space, she came with such a kindness that felt like ceremony for us. And we sat around with her, and we had the honor of listening to her stories of all of her adventures through her life. And as stewards of the land, as caretakers of this land, as Indigenous peoples, she reminded us through her stories that that love for the land is shared by so many people who care for Mother Earth. Dr. Jane Goodall's work that continues today is a reminder that we need to continue to take action, that we need to protect all forms of life, and that we need to repair the harm that has been done. So Dr. Jane Goodall, thank you for reminding us to listen to the land, to care for Mother Earth, and to love all forms of life. Safe travels, Dr. Jane Goodall.
As Indigenous people, we also like to start all things with song. And there are a variety of reasons why we sing the songs that we sing, the reasons for them. As a Haudenosaunee person, we are going to offer the Mohawk Friendship Song here today. And it is a song that we offer in friendship to all of the guests on our lands. Oh. So we're going to lead it out, and I know that folks might know the song. And by the third, fourth round, we hope to hear you singing with us as well.
Thank you, Amy, Maddie, and Bagashimo, for gifting us with your words and your songs. Now, our next guest, George Stroumboulopoulos, is one of Canada's most influential and respected broadcasters, and also an outspoken advocate on many humanitarian issues. But before we bring George on stage, we want to show you a short clip behind the scene of the two of them backstage at the event this September.
So cheeky.
Get it, get it, get it.
Sorry. And now, please welcome George Stroumboulopoulos on stage to tell us his stories of Jane.
Good afternoon. It is lovely to be with you today. I was asked to say a few words about Jane and our moments together, and like many of you, I wouldn't be standing here if she didn't grab our hearts somewhere along the way, which she did to so many of us. For me, it happened right from the beginning. It wasn't just her work, as formidable as it was. That's kind of what you saw in that video there. It was the way she did it. It was the way she connected with all of us, her way of being. And to be able to do that at the end of a long day, on a long tour, in a really incredibly long and beautiful life, she always had that energy for that smile. So the way she was is what anchored itself in so many of us. So thank you for letting me share a little bit. I am happy to be with you. Happy might be a strange word for a memorial, but I think it is the right word because it's the word that Jane would have wanted me to use. She didn't want the kind of sadness that stops you in your tracks. She didn't want your grief to calcify. She knew sadness, of course, and she understood discouragement, but she believed deeply in nurturing joy and cultivating it because that's the kind of joy that isn't whimsical or flippant. It's the kind of joy that you need to fuel the courage to keep facing difficult tasks and climb enormous mountains, the hardest battles. And that's what she did over and over again. Another reason I'm happy to be here with you today is because I think Jane really would have got a kick out of this. She would have liked this, especially you, Liam. She would have loved to see you here today. It's not that she liked being celebrated. She is as good at being a celebrity as anybody I ever met. She was really good at being famous, but it wasn't her reason for being, and that is very special. I think she would have loved this because for as deeply and strongly as you felt for Jane, she got it. She knew what she meant to you. She felt it deeply and she appreciated it. In the quiet moments before we'd go on stage or on camera, we would share a laugh, and it's true, Bella, there would be a sip or two or three or four. I don't want to spill any trade secrets, but occasionally, if you saw a bottle of water, it might not have been. It might not have been. And then I would look at her and I'd say, that many? And then she would look at me and she'd say, it's good for my throat. And I would look at her as if I'd heard that excuse before, and then she would try to explain the science to me on why it was good for her. But no matter how tired she was and how famous she understood she was always genuinely surprised at how many people would want to be in the same room with her. You've heard her say this before, why me? Why me? But she would quickly move on from that because the why me didn't matter. What mattered to Jane was if you were there, then she would be there. And sometimes when you are faced with the enormity of some people's accomplishments and impact on this world, it's those tiny little playful ones, like the one you saw in the video today. That's what stays with you. Because yeah, she was kind and sweet and mischievous, and she was a prankster, but she was pretty spicy too. That's a sidebar. I was once with Jane, we were at this campfire kind of event, and we were sitting outside by a campfire. It was cold, so we had blankets on us. We were drinking hot drinks, whatever it may be, and there was some performances happening on stage, and suddenly I felt this, I don't know what's going on here, because Jane be elbowing me in the rib cage, critiquing, celebrating, but giving her honest opinion of all the performances. Either under her breath or just with a jab right to my midsection. Jane was always telling the truth. She couldn't help but tell the truth. And a lot of people in this world do live as two people, the one that you see and then the one that they are privately. But Jane was always Jane. She was whole, she was integrated, she was true. Maybe it's because I don't think Jane ever let go of the little girl that was inside her, the young Jane, the one you've heard a lot about, the curious one, the bold one, the stubborn in the best way, drawn to everything that was living, every living thing, especially children. I remember during our last conversation, I had mentioned to her that I met a young girl in the audience who wanted to know how could she begin to become a biologist. And Jane looked into the section where the young girl, Maggie, was sitting and said, "You already are. You're already doing it." And it was so matter-of-factly because Jane believed in just start. That's what she did. You've heard the stories about how she went and embarked on a journey that most parents would never let their kids do, certainly in that era, not even today, but certainly back then. But Jane did it regardless of it. And this is important to remember, especially for you if you're here tonight or you're watching and you aren't quite living fully the life that you want to live in the journey, and maybe because you're afraid of the criticism or the obstacles you might face or the derision that some might throw you. We all know Jane now as one of the most celebrated people of the last century, but she was ridiculed and dismissed when she started. Ridiculed and dismissed. Can you imagine that for Jane Goodall? No academic credentials, no international and institutional support, just a calling and a courage to follow it. Of course, we know that some of the ridicule came because she didn't have the training. A large part of it came because she was a young woman, but also, as Bella mentioned, because of her methods. And those methods would, in fact, revolutionize not just our place in the natural world, but our consciousness. Treating a chimpanzee, treating any animal, not like it was a test subject, but that they were individuals. They had names and families. They had hierarchies. They had grief. They had politics. They had tenderness. She showed us their conflict and their cooperation, and in doing so, I really believe Jane showed us. She didn't study animals, or just. She revealed our humanity on that journey, the gentle side, the compassionate side, the violent side, and the bullying side that all lived inside of us. And you've heard that old saying many, many times, the good wolf, which wolf do you choose? Jane believed that you could choose which side wins, which is a powerful thing for a scientist to say, but it's an even more powerful thing for a human being to live. And maybe that belief in cooperation and choosing our better angels is why she loved dogs so much. Because chimps might be just a little too close to us and the flaws of humanity that we all kind of experience. But dogs were different. They embodied the loyalty and the love that I think she believed we were all capable of, despite a lot of evidence that make you not feel that way every day. But animals weren't just her work. They weren't a hobby. They were fellow travelers. They were teachers and they were family. I was going to talk about a Bible verse on my bingo card for 2025, but I was thinking about an early conversation that I had with Jane many, many, many years ago, and she said that she loved to go out and do this, but she would get tired sometimes, and even sometimes she might even be feeling a little grumpy and didn't want to leave the fireplace in the home she grew up in with her family, didn't want to leave the hot tea, and didn't want to get on another plane. But there was a little box that she had built for her grandmother when she was 12 years old. It was a little Bible box, and inside that box had hundreds of Bible verses, hundreds of quotes. And whenever Jane was feeling, in her words, grumpy, she would put her hand in that box, and almost every time the same verse popped up. She picked the same verse, which said, "No one who puts their hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God." That once you start on this trip, you have to continue on this trip. And then I was also surprised that Jane brought up the Bible, and I said, "Are you chasing the kingdom of God?" And she laughed and she said, No, I'm chasing good on this planet. Chasing good. Not waiting for it, not hoping for it, pursuing good. That's who she was. And maybe that's the part that's so real and so raw for me, and I think for a lot of us here today, maybe all of us, is that when somebody like Jane leaves this world, the loss is not just philosophical, it's not just symbolic, it is so personal. Because people like Jane, they don't just teach us things, they change us. They leave fingerprints on who we become, and then when we're gone, we're left with a silence that we know nobody will ever be able to replace. But what do we do with that silence? Well, we remember, not because it's sentimental, not because it's tradition, but because remembering is a way of keeping the best parts of them alive in us. And it's how their courage becomes our courage, and how their choices can guide our choices. And in instances like this, remembering is an act of defiance. Think of how often you open your phone before you're awake for 5 minutes and lose all hope for humanity. All the time. And I think Jane felt that way too sometimes, but the feeling didn't matter. You fight on anyway. She made you believe that your actions could matter. She redefined, I think, what it meant to be human by reminding us of the profound connection to every living thing, and in doing that, she did give us the job. You talked about being better stewards, that was it. Better protectors, better family members, but not just to our own, but to the rest of this planet. So what do we do now? Well, we mourn her, of course. But she did tell me that she'd had enough weird experiences to make her think that this life was not the only life, that this was not the end. And I think if she were here today with that whiskey, she'd probably tell us something like, choose the version that you want to win, the compassionate one, the brave one, the one that believed change was possible. Legacy is the choices we make because they exist. So Valerie Jane Morris Goodall, you will be eternally missed. There will be never, ever be anyone like you. And the good you chased, we will chase it now. Thank you.
Thank you, George. That was both heartbroken hearing your words, but also so inspiring. I think just as Jane would have wanted it. Now, at the start of this fall semester here at the University of Toronto, Jane spoke to a roomful of students on campus. She told them that young people were her greatest reason for hope because they're changing the world as we speak. Today, we have one of these young change makers with us, Chloe Chang. She is currently enrolled in the Masters of Science program at the Institute for Resources, Environment, and Sustainability at the University of British Columbia. She's a proud alumni of the Jane Goodall Institute of Canada Youth Advisory Council, and now she serves on a board of directors. Welcome, Chloe.
Hello, everyone. I'm speaking in front of you today as a former Youth Advisory Council and current board member of JGIC, as a conservation biologist, and most simply as a fellow Homo sapiens here to honor someone who's had such a monumental impact on all of our lives. It is such a tremendous honor to be speaking here with all of you today. I don't think I can outdo George's speech, but that's okay. We move on. For the past few weeks since being asked to speak here, I've been sitting at my desk late at night with a blank Word document open, cursor blinking, judging. I actually wrote an incredible speech, only to find an Instagram reel of Leonardo DiCaprio telling my jokes at the JGIUS Memorial. My dad tried to help by sending me ChatGPT responses about Jane's achievements, but I've saved you all from that speech iteration. Seriously, though, how could you even go about describing the impact of a person whose footsteps shaped the world you were born into? I was born long after her groundbreaking research in Gombe. I didn't grow up during her breakthroughs, before her courage opened doors for women and young people, before she shaped the moral landscape of conservation we have today. I've only ever known the after, the legacy. Today, I want to answer the question that's been living inside my chest these past few weeks and will likely return to me for the rest of my life. What impact has Jane Goodall had on the life of a woman whose world has been shaped by Jane since day one? I think the answer actually begins long before I was born. It begins with my mom. My mama, who brought me here today, grew up during the wave of difficult women who were at the frontier of conservation science. My mom remembers Jane's description of David Greybeard, the first chimpanzee to trust Jane and accept her into their world. Her discovery of him wielding tools has crossed oceans, ecosystems, and generations as it broke down society's hierarchical structure of nature and showed us how scientists can still work with a heart. By sharing how chimps have families, emotions, language, and that they aren't so different from us, Jane inspired everyday people like my mom to raise me with a respect for the more than human world, to insist that every creature matters. So by the time I was old enough to steer my direction in life, I was volunteering and working in wildlife rehabilitation and conservation. I've nursed injured animals back to health, taught strangers about the value of keeping snakes in our backyards, sprinted knee-deep across bogs to track caribou off the coast of Newfoundland. That's a story for later. But this passion felt like my calling. As I got older, though, that deep admiration I carried for nature, the love that had always felt like a gift, started to feel like a weight. Every news headline about habitat loss, species declines, the world ending as we know it. As a teenager, I never felt so alone in feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders as I inherited problems that I didn't cause and felt absolutely helpless to fix. And I know now that that is the story of so many young people today, as we struggle with anxiety and apathy because we are simply too overwhelmed. We don't know what to do with what we've been handed. I've wanted to help, I wanted to act, but I felt like nothing I could do would ever be enough. And then in that storm of fear and frustration, I found the Jane Goodall Institute of Canada. Through JGIC, through my time at the Youth Advisory Council, I found a space where young people are not told to wait their turn, but are invited to lead. I found how local solutions tackle global problems as community-centered conservation recognizes that those most affected by the issue may be those best suited to solve them. I am living proof of how Jane and JGIC inspire and empower youth. I've learned how locally driven solutions simultaneously benefit the people, animals, and environments across Africa. I've seen firsthand how Jane and JGIC uplift grassroots movements and the environmental stewardship of Indigenous peoples that has occurred across Canada since time immemorial. In writing this speech, I've come to realize that the person I am in front of you today, the girl who loves nature, the woman who's motivated to work in wildlife and community-centered conservation, and the person who now wakes up each day genuinely believing that every action can make the world a kinder place. I am this person because Jane built a world where someone like me could exist. Standing here today at 23 years young, not with apathy, but with compassion and hope, I know that I've flourished from the roots of Jane's legacy. And I hope to share some of that inspiration with all of you here today. When I met Jane in the previous photo shown back in 2023, several board members and I were visiting her hotel room in Toronto. Not gonna lie, I was surprised at how much these blazer-wearing adults, you'll see Karen in her blazer today, with their accomplished titles and achievements, were so in awe of the woman across from them. Because who I was able to see beside me was not the UN messenger of peace, world-renowned primatologist and humanitarian Dr. Dame Jane Goodall. She was just Jane. She didn't exude an aura of godliness that made me feel like I had to sing my praises. She was the absolute opposite. She was humble, grounded, real, and sharp. So real, in fact, that my takeaway from first meeting her was that I see Jane in so many of the people I know. I see her compassion in the way my rehab center accepts every animal, no matter how small. I see her in my fellow biologists who go the extra mile to communicate their research to the public. I see her in the way my younger cousin climbs barefoot up the trees and listens for the birds. I see her in myself when I refuse to relinquish compassion, joy, or hope. I said I've never known a world without Jane. I don't think I ever will, because we all carry Jane. Each of us choosing to live with hope is how we keep her alive. Jane, what I should have told you when we met, and what I want to tell you now, is thank you for making me who I am. Thank you for showing us that the world's worth fighting for, and for showing us how to fight for it.
Thank you, Chloe. Well, if we ever doubted young people these days, as I get older, I tend to say, I have to admit, but that was beautiful, and I think Jane saw that future with young people like Chloe and many others like her, so thank you. And now I'd like to bring a suit-wearing, jacket-wearing, our lovely board member, vice chair of the board of directors for the Jane Goodall Institute of Canada, Karen McCarthy. Karen will join us on stage to deliver a special message from the Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Mark Carney. Karen, please.
Great, thank you, Bella. Jane had a very special connection to Canada and to Canadians. She often spoke fondly about her affection for our country, and we were fortunate to have her meet many times with Canadians from coast to coast of all generations, and I will always cherish my moments with her. It is my pleasure to share a message from the Right Honourable Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, about what Jane meant to Canada and Canadians. Dr. Goodall's influence truly reached every corner of the globe, including significantly here in Canada. She was not only a pioneering scientist, but a moral and spiritual leader for our age. She reminded us that humanity's true greatness lies in our compassion, our curiosity, and our care for our living planet. Her contributions to science, to Canada, and to humanity were immeasurable. Her groundbreaking research in Gombe transformed our understanding of our closest relatives in the animal kingdom. In Canada, she helped advance groundbreaking legislation for the protection of captive wild animals, inspired Canada's global climate leadership, and helped cultivate a uniquely Canadian approach to conservation, one grounded in science, our youth, and respect for Indigenous knowledge. Her tireless advocacy inspired generations to see that science and empathy are not opposing forces, but essential partners in the stewardship of our home planet. As we remember Dr. Goodall today, we honor not only her extraordinary achievements, but her enduring call to conscience, to act with courage, to protect the natural world, and to nurture the best of our shared humanity. May her spirit continue to guide and inspire all who seek to build a more just, sustainable, and compassionate world. On behalf of the Jane Goodall Institute of Canada, I would like to thank Prime Minister Mark Carney for his thoughtful message. And as we now look to the future, we at the Institute are honored to continue the work that Jane started, as well as her message of hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And next, we have a very special guest, the grandson of Dr. Jane, Merlin Van Lawick, will be sharing his thoughts via a video message that he sent to us and how he would like to honor his grandmother. Today also happens to be Merlin's birthday, so we're sending him our warmest wishes as he spends this day being with his family.
Hello everyone, my name is Merlin Van Lawick and I am the grandson of Dr. Jane Goodall. My family and I would have loved to have been there with you in person, but that was not possible. I'm really sorry about that. We all are. Just over a month ago, we said goodbye to our beloved grandmother, and she has now begun her next great adventure. Many will remember her for a variety of reasons. Her message of hope through action will live on in countless people, and she stands as a symbol of the indomitable human spirit that she has discussed in her lectures and talks throughout her life. But I will remember her for reminding me of the wonders of this life and the interconnectedness of diverse beings. When one studies and listens closely with intent and patience, this magnificent world presents itself. For her, there were no dull moments. If you've known her, you've probably heard her talk about this next great adventure. She'll add, when someone asks her, Jane, what is the next adventure you're going to go on? She would think, well, you know what? I can't really trek through the dense jungles anymore or climb the steep hillsides. The next great adventure will be discovering what happens after death. Just think about it, she would add. If there's nothing, then there is nothing to worry about. Or there is something. And isn't that the most exciting thing? To discover what that is? We shall all miss her greatly, and although she is no longer with us in person, her spirit will continue to live in everyone who has embraced and loved her, as well as all of those who have listened to her message and will carry forth the mission. You are a messenger, dear beloved, a messenger from the divine, and now you have returned to the divine. You are and have always been a gift to this world. Your story will continue through everyone gathered here today and the million others whom your message have touched. Thank you.
We're so blessed to have Merlin joining us via video and representing Jane's family. Now, our next guest to join us is someone else who has spoken to Jane about her next great adventure. Jan Arden is an award-winning singer, songwriter, author, actor, and who advocates fiercely for animal rights. We've been so fortunate to have Jan be part of our Jane lectures, not just once, but twice over the past years. Jan will now come and share her reflections of her time spent with Dr. Jane, and to be followed by a musical performance in her honor. Welcome, Jan.
I think this is tuned. I'm trying to think of what I was doing when I was 23. And I have to say, I think I could have worked on my vocabulary a lot. I recall standing in a field drinking beer, staring at a fire, wondering who had chips. Jane Goodall was such an amazing woman. The opportunity to talk to her was probably one of the career highlights for me, absolutely. She was very funny. She was very quick-witted. Like, I'm thinking, if I can, I'm 63, and she at 89, 90, when I met her the last couple of years, was so fast on her feet. She was extremely pleased with herself to make jokes and to have fun with people around her. And you know, when you're the last great defender of the planet, when you're one of the last great defenders of the planet, she did it with such a sense of ease and grace because she believed in us. So let's not let her down. This is a song. Obviously, I'm not going to do a rap. I should have written a rap. If I could get a little more in the monitor, who's ever running that, that would be great. I'm here with my dear friend Graham Powell. I had a chance to sing this to Jane. And it was a nerve-wracking moment. I've got money in my pocket. I like the color of my hair. I've got a friend who loves me. Got a house. I've got a car. I've got a good mother. And her voice is what keeps me here. Feet on ground, heart in hand, facing forward, be yourself. I never wanted anything. No, I've never wanted anything so bad. Cardboard masks of all the people I've been thrown out with all the rusted, tangled, dented, goddamn miseries. You could say I'm hard to hold, but if you knew me, you'd know I've got a good father, and his strength is what makes me cry. Feet on ground, heart in hand, facing forward, be yourself. Never wanted anything. No, I've never wanted anything so bad. I've got money in my pocket. I like the color of my hair. I've got a friend who loves me. Got a house. I've got a car. I've got a good mother. And her voice is what keeps me here. Feet on ground, heart in hand, facing forward, be yourself. Heart in hand, feet on ground, facing forward, be yourself. Just be yourself. Just be yourself.
hand, feet on ground, heart in hand.
We love you, Jane.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Graham. I just want to let you know that Jan and Graham, actually, they're on tour, and they actually have a show tonight in Oakville. And for those of you who are near GTA, you know the traffic. So we're just so grateful that they squeezed in this moment to share the beautiful song. And I kind of have to think that Jean has something to do with that, the prankster that she was. Probably like speaking in Jan's mind, you know, getting her attention on something else. But at least we know Jane was with us. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts to every one of our speakers for sharing your time, your beautiful tributes. And the event today has been made possible by the efforts of so many people and their kindness and generosity. I just want to take a moment to thank the School of the Environment in the Faculty of Arts and Science at the University of Toronto, Pinks Pro AV, Wendy Black, Sharon House, Catherine Holland, for giving so much of their generosity and spirit to make today so special and creating this truly awesome space where all of us can experience and remember Jane together. I also want to acknowledge the Jane Goodall Institute of Canada team, all the staff and board members for their support over the past couple of months. And I'm so grateful for the phenomenal group of dedicated individuals who've worked day and night on every detail of this event, led by some of our awesome staff members and with the help of our amazing volunteers. You're truly a dream team. And I just want to give a shout out to Caitlin Russell, the master organizer. I think a number of you have received, yes. I can honestly say that you are seated here today because you've received several emails from Caitlin. So thank you. And to all the team, I'm just so blessed to have you guys on Team Goodall, as we used to say. And to every one of you here in the audience, and folks joining us online from across Canada, I was told that we have over 1,000 people watching on live stream. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Your presence has made the difference and making it such an extra special, memorable day. Together with all of you, we will grow community-led conservation, empower youth environmental leadership, and advance Jane's legacy for future generations to come. And as we leave here, we will continue to honor Jane in the best way that we can, the way that she taught us, that each and every one of us taking actions, however big and small, to build a more hopeful and sustainable world. And the last words belong to Jane. Together we can, together we will, together we must change the world. Thank you.
In July 1960, Jane Goodall, a 26-year-old English girl, has embarked on a remarkable adventure.
This was the life I had always wished for.
Baby, don't you cry no more.
It's become apparent that I have to use this power to help the creatures who have put me in a position to do just that.
We just get one love.
She started something. We are continuing it, and we do not want it to stop.
Young people in Roots and Shoots are rolling up their sleeves, talking about what they can do, and they're changing the world. You cannot help but understand how everything's interconnected. Each and every one of us matters.
is a catalyst that connects all of us.
Together we can. Together we will save the world. Thank you.
When people talking about the theory Mother Nature, I think she is the Mother Nature.
And that just means this is me, this is Jane.